So we are recording. That means you guys' devices need to be zipped up, please. You should be able to see my screen with the agenda. I'm going to start today by allowing you guys to work on your squash and stretch, whether you want to go the bouncing ball direction or you want to go in a different direction entirely. That's totally up to you. But I want you guys to start. Wait, did I cut somebody off?
No.
Oh, I thought I heard someone say something. Anyway, no worries. Okay, so you should be able to see my screen. You should be able to see my tablet. Mine's working. You can see if I wiggle my mouse over here. You can adjust the pressure sensitivity and stuff. These do tell how much you are pressing down. These are pretty nice. It's a good little tool that it's gonna take me some getting used to. Like that pop-up, for example, is new. But anyway, sorry, I'm getting sidetracked. So with squash and stretch, that's really the first of 12 animation principles that we've covered here. Let me put my captions over on the screen. Now we can start thinking about squash and stretch and get really acclimated to it, because these principles tend to inform one another. They tend to all work together, and they tend to be pretty foundational in the sense that they all behave with each other. So what I'm going to do is open up Krita, and I want you guys to follow along with me here. You go by Krita. It's the one with the kind of cool rainbow paintbrush situation. And it's going to pop open like this. So before we do anything, let me move my Krita window over here and close out of our agenda. Speaking of agenda, real quick, sidetrack. I have attached a video on animating in Krita in case you ever need to remember how to do this later on. I'm also recording it. So there's lots of resources available, both that I've created and found. So once our agenda decides to load, there'll be a video in there that I'll show you in just a second. So my Krita is going to look a little funky because I have a 1280 monitor. You guys have 1080 monitors, so you have a little bit more room to work. We're going to stick to Krita for its animation tools, specifically to these foundations and these practices. But you can animate in Photoshop. You can animate in Adobe Animate, After Effects, even though it's a little bit of a different kind of animation approach with motion design compared to actually drawing frame by frame stuff. Anyways, it's not the point. Let's get into Krita here. So we're at the Krita start screen, and we want to start a new file right over here. You can also hold Control+N on your keyboard. I'm going to pop that open, create a new document. I'm going to set my width to 1920. I'm going to set my height to 1080. And then I'm going to set my resolution to 72 pixels per inch. Here should look something like this after you've clicked on new file. It's custom document, the first option right at the top, and make it 1920 wide by 1080 tall, and 72 DPI is another term for resolution. All right, so I'm going to click create once I've got these numbers all set up in this order. And that's going to present me with the Krita screen here. So you got your tools on the left. I'm going to switch over to my pen now. 1920 wide by 1080 tall. So width of 1920.
Yeah,
oh, sorry, 72. All right, so here we have in Krita, that's pressure, if it wants to go. It's pressure sensitive. So if I push extra hard, it gets darker. If I push very lightly, it's very gentle, very thin line. So this app and these tablets are both pressure sensitive. I'm just going to Control-Z those away real quick, because the only thing I want you guys to be aware of is that this is our canvas. This is ultimately what we're going to be drawing in. And then these are our tools over on the left. We are going to stick almost exclusively while we're practicing to the freehand brush tool or the pen tool, which I think in this one is called the Bezier curve tool. So that one's for later. We're going to stick to the brush. For now, if you need to quickly get to the brush, you can press B on your keyboard, and that's going to pop open your brush tool. Remember, on your keyboard, you can press the bracket keys right next to backspace, if I get it close up for the recording. Okay. Bracket keys, if you can see on my Krita, it's going to increase the size of my brush. The left bracket or the right bracket increases. And then if I hold the left bracket, it's going to decrease. That circle is going to get smaller so that we can change the size, the largeness, or the smallness of our brushes here. All right, so next what we need to do is take your mouse and go up here to window. You're gonna find this window option right here at the top. We're gonna set that window by going, window workspace. And then we're gonna go to animation. I want you guys to find animation. Once you go window, workspace, animation, there should be something of a timeline that pops up at the bottom here, as well as a little some data on onion skins, some little onion button, speed. Yours should look like this if you're in the animation workspace. I'll let you guys get a second to make sure that your Krita looks like mine for the purposes of our demo today. I'm actually gonna Control Z, get rid of that real quick. So in the animation panel, does anybody need help finding the animation workspace? All right. So this animation workspace, while it's pretty technical, we got a lot of tools going on. They've moved up to the top instead of being on the side here. These are our different layers and our background layer. So you can have multiple different parallax effects if you're drawing your background separately from the stuff that's happening in your foreground, which is going to be on layer 1. Animations that are hand-drawn are typically either 12 frames per second or 14 to 16. Usually there's a lot of different numbers that you can work with, but 12 and 16 are the ones that I find most common, whereas cameras are typically 24 frames per second, and then high speed is upwards of 60, 120 frames per second. So with that in mind, each of these down here on the timeline is an individual frame that we're going to draw by hand. It's going to take 12 drawings to make 1 second of animation at the fastest frame rate, or the slowest frame rate, I mean. The more frames you have per second, the more fluidity and more smoothness you can add to your animations. But you also have to do more work, and you also have to be more detailed with more information actually being communicated from your drawings. So I'm going to take my mouse here. I don't have my pen. I'm using my mouse. There's 3 buttons right here. There's one right here for add blank frame. There's one right here for add duplicate frame. And then there's one that's remove keyframes without moving anything. We're going to ignore these back 2 for the most part and just focus on this add blank frame one for the time being, which is right here. If you need a visual, I got my target. It says it's right there. Add blank frame. It's right to the right, directly to the right of the speed adjustment right here. You can see too that we have paint layer 1 has this little orange icon right here on frame number 0. Before we start doing anything, if you want actually, if you want something to appear on this canvas, even though it has just this white background, you have to start by adding a blank frame. So I'm going to click on this add blank frame button. And you're going to see this little light bulb icon appear. It's right next to the kind of gray striped orange. You know you've got a frame in there when you've got the gray stripe oranges and the little light bulb right here. So what we'll do now is draw something on our canvas here. So it's taking a little getting used to because I'm sitting at a different angle than what my computer is. So I'm going to go as straight as I can and then as straight down as I can. This is the same example that I was showing you guys yesterday. So here's our first frame. We have our ball. I'm gonna go slow because this is very awkward for me. Okay, it's a football now as compared to maybe it's a stone or an egg. But this is our very first frame. If we were to hit play right now by just tapping, okay, you can see the little orange icon's gonna run through. I think it does 100 frames. It does. Right now, we don't have any data, and our background, our starting situation here is just hanging out waiting for more detail. So I'm going 12 frames per second. So that means every 12 frames is 1 second of animation for me. So I want to keep that in mind when I'm thinking about how fast I want this ball to fall if we're recreating the animation from yesterday. But before we actually think about the speed or some of the more technical details of our animation, we need an actual second, third, fourth, 12th frame to draw on. So to do that, you click on the next box from the orange tiger stripe looking one. And then you're going to add another blank frame onto that one. And when I do that, you're going to notice that our drawing disappears. So if I click on here on my onion skinning, oh, that's popping back out. Okay. Hold on, let me try something real quick. Make sure that this is working. because it's supposed to show you. It's supposed to show you a little remainder of your previous artwork, because it's going to be pretty hard to animate by just guessing. Okay, let me try something. Okay, we're going to let that run through, see if it does each of my individual frames. Okay, so it is doing my individual frames. I'm just going to right click and remove keyframe. Right click with my mouse, remove keyframe, create blank frame. I need to figure out why my onion skinning is not working. Onion skinning is that idea that the previous frame is going to have still be visible so you can trace over it. And it has a lower opacity so that you can see through it, basically. So let me try, hold on. We're going to figure out why mine's not working. All right, let's go filter onion skin by frame color. Let me just use my mouse real quick. So here's, I'm actually going to do numbers. So we're going to start with 1, add blank, 1, go to the next frame, 2, go to the next frame, 3. Why is my onions? Oh, I know why. It's because I forgot to, all that light bulb that I was talking about, that you needed to check and make sure it was appearing. I forgot to turn it on. So make sure that on your paint layer 1 or whichever layer that you're animating, that light bulb that says onion skins is turned on. So now you can see on my screen the different layers that are happening in order. Green is going to mean it's going to go forward, and red it's meaning it's going to go behind. And the color of the frame is whatever color you drew when you started drawing. So let me start from scratch once again. So we're pretending, I'm going to leave my little target icon here. We're pretending that I checked this box, this light bulb is lit up. I'm going to turn off this checkbox here. We're pretending that this light bulb is lit up. And when we start animating, you click on add blank frame. I'm going to start with my my falling ball example, or my bouncing ball example. I'm actually going to do it a little differently this time, and I'm going to have it start up here and then just fall and bounce a few times. All right, so there's our first frame. I'm going to go over here with my pen. I'm going to add a new blank. I'm going to first click on the next one in sequence and then add a blank frame. You can see there's my ball. There's the previous frame because it's in red. So now I can reference by trying to draw the same size ball. This is tough. This is going to take some practice. So we have the same size ball, and then I'm just going to continue that process, thinking about how my ball is going to squash and stretch as it moves downward. Downward, I mean, of course, as it moves downward towards my floor down here, towards my destination. So what I want you guys to do is try to get 12 frames completed. Try to get 1 second of animation thinking about your squashing and your stretching inside of Krita. Before I set you guys off to do that, does anybody need help setting this up? Because this is all very new and all very scary. Are we all good? Okay. You can also Canvas message me if you need help, and I can find you other tools that you can reference. Remember, there's no stupid questions. Okay, so I'm going to go to my 4th frame, add a new frame. I'll start to see some stretch happening. It's going to look bad. That's how every good thing starts. Okay, so you can see, if you're still watching my stream, as I move forward in my animation, it's only really keeping like 3 onion layers behind where I'm currently working. Because if it kept every single onion layer, it would be a darn mess trying to do anything inside of this animation workspace. Add new frame, stretch out. Really picking up some speed here, increasing the distance between my my layers, my ghosts, my onion ghosts along the way as this ball falls. Okay, I'm at 6 seconds. I'm at half of 1 second. I really hit peak speed here. Remember, when you squash and stretch things, or when you stretch things for speed, you have to also press them towards the top and bottom so that they don't increase in mass, like what mine is looking like it's doing presently. Anyway, so I've reached my impact frame. If you're still following along with me, I think I just did a duplicate frame on accident. There we go. So I've reached my impact. I've reached where my ball is going to hit the ground. So this is where I implement my first instance of squashing. So I'm gonna squash. Oh goodness, that's quite a squash. That is far too much squash. So let's pretend what I'm thinking about based off these onion skins is I kind of want to create. I want to take this stretched shape and basically turn it on its equal side. So you can see how like this kind of creates an axis, like a graph. This is basically the same amount of stretch, except it's moving in this direction as compared to moving downwards. I'll pretend that goes down in this direction. So I'm going to undo these real quick. So there's my first impact frame. After my first, wait, what? Okay, hold on, let me. Okay. So let me play this real quick, see how I look. So my ball should be hanging out. That's impact. Okay, gotcha. Splat. Okay, you get a problem.
Yeah, so one thing about that's happening to it,
Okay, your pen is just like not.
yeah, but then I don't know why, because I'm very sure I'm about the things that I'm doing.
Did you remember to draw? So play it and we'll go all the way through 100. Yeah, so on each of the frames, to go back to this first frame, black is current frame, green is next frame, and red is previous frame. So if you go one, this is previous frame. So you got to draw it in every time.
Oh.
Yeah, so that it's always there.
Oh.
Okay, so here we are, the first impact frame, the first time that my ball is hitting the ground. So after that, my ball's not going to immediately return to normal, or my shape or whatever thing you are squashing and stretching is not going to immediately return to normal the second that it finishes squashing. So what I'm going to do here is a concept we'll cover later when it comes to timing and spacing called in-betweening or tweening. I'm going to go for the kind of combination of squash amount and stretch amount that's going to happen in between these two phases of my motion here. So I'm just going to kind of generally make a ball shape as best I can with this tool. This is like a falling potato more than anything. Okay, I'm turning my thing like this. All right, we're switching it up. Now I can actually like do it accurately. So I'm looking at about halfway. I'm looking at about halfway here. I'm just going to draw my vaguely squashed, but vaguely stretched. And if we go back and reference the first frame, we've gained some significant mass, but that's okay because we're learning how to animate. Okay, but I've got my tween where it's in between the squash and stretch amount. Okay, and then in between the tween, it's going to stretch a little bit more. Just a tiny bit more as it kind of returns to normal. Okay, and then finally add one more blank frame. This should be the ball at rest. So if I play this, okay, my ball's just going to hang out. As it falls, it's not perfect. It's more of a splat than anything. Because remember, the more squash and the more stretch that you add to your animation, the softer your thing appears. This might actually be easier for me to do with mouse. So if you don't like using the tablet, you don't have to. I just know you guys have really solid art skills already, so I want you to be able to translate that digitally as well. But I'm gonna do, because I work better with a mouse, I'm gonna do this with a mouse. So I'm gonna delete all these and start from scratch. Can I do mass remove? All right, so here we are. You can also use your arrow keys to navigate through your timeline. So you can see, all right, I don't have anything. All right, so I'm gonna do this with my mouse real quick. My ball, if you're watching along with me, is going pretty insanely fast into its impact. It's got a little bit more of a it's a little bit more speed than I intended, because in half a second it's gone from up here all the way down to here, which is a little faster than I wanted, but that's okay. It means I'm gonna have more spring when I come back up off the ground here in just a second. So that's this frame, and we're gonna add a new blank frame. This is our first big impact. Okay, squash it down. Squash it down. Down. Now, what I'm thinking about as I continue my ball on a bounce track is, since it carried so much speed into the impact of the first frame, it's not going to stretch very much as it bounces. It's going to maintain a pretty consistent sizing, maybe a teensy bit of squash right here. Okay, add a little bit of tweening. Like that. Squash it a little more. Back to full size. And then we should be all good here. Then I'm gonna add some little sparkles. You can also duplicate frames. So now that my ball is at rest, now that it's no longer moving, now I can use the duplicate frame. So when I click on my next thing and I add a duplicate frame, it's just gonna add the same thing once again. These look like stink lines. Don't actually want stinky ball. Okay, so I'm gonna remove these. See, it's quite a process. Now you'll have a newfound appreciation for how long animated things take to finish. Because we're just animating bouncing balls. We're not doing anything crazy.
Fighting like Disney movies, fighting scenes.
Right.
Oh, God.
Add a duplicate frame here. Oops. Okay, I want to add a duplicate. Wait, shoot, I forgot to draw it. Okay, here I want to add a duplicate. Here. Guess we'll do it the old-fashioned way. And I'm just, if you want an insight into what I'm thinking here, I am just gonna add a couple repeating frames of this kind of like little celebration confetti thing I've got going on here, just so that I have at the end of my animation, so a little bit of extra motion, a little bit of extra kind of fun as my ball comes in for a landing. And I have not checked my progress yet, because to be honest, I'm scared of what it's gonna look like here. So here. All right, so I'm gonna hit play on this. We got about 2 seconds because I'm going for 12 frames a second. We are at 32, so like 2.5 seconds. When I hit play, it's just gonna, oh, actually, I need to get rid of the confetti. So we're gonna go here. Okay. Let's get to 36, so I have 3 seconds, because that's 12 times 3, right? Oh, right. It's a good thing I don't teach math. Okay. Go here, just drawing the ball in the stationary position. And then I'm gonna put in for ending. All right, so now if you've been kind of following along with my process, remember the green frames in Krita are the upcoming frames and the red frames are the previous ones. So as I click through, you can see my ball is going to gain some pretty significant speed. Right when it makes an impact, I'm looking for the in-between of squash and stretch, just kind of making a weird shape like this. Okay, then I'm way squashed. I'm translating all that speed from the stretch into the squash, going into the opposite direction. Okay, my ball's going to bounce up a little bit. I skipped some frames there because I was kind of in a hurry. I was kind of going sloppy. My ball has lost a ton of speed as I've communicated with the squash and stretch. So it's going to maintain a pretty consistent, maybe a little bit of squash as it makes an impact to give our animation a little bit more life. And then here's our confetti section where it goes, hooray! And then it says fit right at the end. So when I hit play, you'll see that translated once I get back to boink, boink. Hooray, fit. So even still, the amount of speed I was translating is not directly, is not translating super well to the actual speed of my animation. You can see the second hop, the second bounce is kind of bleh. Like it's not very enthusiastic. It's not very exciting, to be honest. But this is squash and stretch in action. You guys don't have to do a bouncing ball. You can experiment with squash and stretch in other ways. This is just the easiest way to start, to kind of get a vibe, to see how it feels. Easiest might not even be true. Maybe the most classic, because this is the way that I was taught, and the way that I have experimented. But yeah, this is what mine looks like. It takes 3 seconds, 36 frames, 12 frames per second. And that's what we're working with. Real quick, so that it's on the video, I will show you again in class, but since we have a limited amount of Zoom time, I'm going to stop this animation, and we need to do what's called export this. I mean, we haven't saved it at all yet. It's just, you don't want to save your work. I did the classic artist mistake of not saving my work. I'm going to go File, Save As, and then put this somewhere safe, like inside my OneDrive. So I'm going to go to my OneDrive, and then find Studio Graphic Arts folder. I know we haven't hardly used it yet, but we will start using it more. I'm going to create a new folder here for Krita, just so that I know that these are my Krita files, and then this is squash stretch example, and then I'm just going to hit enter. Okay, so squash stretch example.krita file. Control S to save that. Now I can export it. So I'm going to go to, let's see. We're going to go down to render animation, because animations, right, just like video, is just a series of pictures. So we need to combine all those pictures into a fully finished video, or a motion picture, so to speak. We're going to render that animation. So you want to export this as a video. You don't want to, I mean, you could export it as both if you want 36 PNGs of every single one of your frames, but we don't want to do that. For the sake of our purposes, we're going to check video from the render animation settings. First frame is 0, width is 1920 by 1080. I'm turning my FPS down to 12 because that's what I was animating at. And my last frame is 36. So these numbers are going to be a little different for you. It's just dependent on the 12 FPS will probably be the same, but your start and end frames might be a little different if you're doing something more intense or more detailed, whatever, or less intense, less detailed. Those are both fine options. Just make sure your first and last frames actually line up. The last thing you need to do is you need to choose a file destination. Oh, just kidding. That's not it. Video location. You want to check this folder icon right next to video location. This is asking where it wants you to save it. It's going to save it as a MP4 video. I'm just going to click save and then click OK. And Krita can't find We need FF, okay. So we need some kind of software here. Hold on. Let me see if I can get this FFmpeg. I want the exe. Wow, this is getting a little scary. So this is sometimes with these open source softwares, sometimes they need a little extra helping hand, and sometimes the helping hands can get a little intimidating, especially when you're getting into some deep file management like on GitHub. But we just want, since we're using Windows, we want some kind of exe. I don't want a tar. Okay, so in the meantime, I don't feel safe downloading any extra additions to a school computer, and I can't recommend that you do it on your personal devices either. So what I'm gonna do for now is I'm just gonna save this, make sure that it's saved as a Krita file. Yes, I want to replace it. Because since we're in the animation workspace, if I open up a different file, or if I make a new file, just create it, I can go File, Open, and open up that Krita document, and it will maintain all of my frames. So your work's not gone. I just don't have a way to render it out yet. If you really, really want to, if you're really happy with your animation today, you can render it as an image sequence to your OneDrive. And then later I can show you how to put it all together in like Premiere Pro. That's an option as well. Or Photoshop, both work. So if you really are keen on keeping your work for today, you can render that out. If not, sit tight. I'll find a better way for us to actually render out these Krita animations. All right, so I'm going to close the Zoom room for now because I'm hitting my limit here shortly. We'll talk a little bit about anticipation and practice anticipation on Thursday and Friday using similar methods and combining them with squash and stretch. So for now, I'm just going to close this up. I'll let you guys animate for about 10-15 more minutes, and then we'll briefly get introduced to anticipation. Thank you guys for listening. I appreciate it.